And if you did not negotiate and you've been promoted, especially if you've stayed with a company for, let's say, 5 years or longer, it is very likely that you are underpaid. Hello, wonderful people, and welcome to episode number 10. Yes, we have reached the double digits of the Meaningful Conversations podcast. Today's episode is going to be relevant for anyone because we're talking about money. We're going to be talking about whether you are being paid enough, whether you are being paid your worth. And we all want to do that, to get paid, right? This episode is going to be particularly relevant for people who have been at their company, at the same company for a while now, for a few jobs, and especially those who did not negotiate coming into the company. I will talk about why later down in the episode, but right now let's dive in and try to figure out whether you are getting paid enough or not. First of all, why is it important to consider and think about every now and again? It's not only just about the money that you earn as a salary, but it's also about the bonuses that you're getting, because a lot of the bonuses are a percentage of your current salary. So if your salary right now is, too low, you might not be getting everything that you could be getting out of the bonuses. And also when it comes to promotions and those bumps in your salary, you might also be missing out because you're at a lower level of pay right now. So you are leaving money on the table by not being paid what you're worth. And I want to make sure that you are thinking about your salary, your compensation package, actually, as a holistic thing, not just your salary and your bonuses, but also other compensation items, elements like 401k match, or just 401k contributions, and or retirement contributions, pension contributions in other countries. For those who are not familiar with the US abbreviations, I remember I was so confused when I first came to the US. What is this 401k? Are they going to pay me $401,000? Anyway, stock options is another thing that is an element of the compensation package that you can negotiate when you're joining the company, or negotiate while you're in the company, and any other benefits. Some of them are monetary, some of them are not monetary, but this is your compensation structure, like vacation days, days off, medical days, all of those things, they do add up. And for some of them, you can actually get paid for. So, for example, if you have a certain amount of vacation days left in a year, you can be paid out for them, or something like that. Certain companies have those regulations. So, it's important to understand what money is there for you to be paid. So now that we know why it is important to do, let's get to the practical steps. And step number one is to do your research, to do your market research on what people who are in a similar position as you in terms of your skills, your experience, your title, your responsibilities, all of those good things. And also taking into the account the location and sometimes the company. Taking all of that into account, can you benchmark what people who have a similar profile to you, what are they making? What is the market rate for professionals like you? I have a YouTube video on some of the most popular salary research platforms. I will leave a link to that video in the description of this episode and in the show notes. So go ahead, find it there, and do your research using those platforms. You want to make sure that you have as much information as possible, and you want to make sure that you do your research on multiple platforms, because all of this data, the way they get it is by individual people volunteering this information. And of course, the more information you have, the more equipped you are to have a potential conversation about a raise or something like that. Basically, you want to gather as much information as possible, use as many platforms as possible to collect it, because some of them will also allow you to filter for location, filter for skill set, filter for levels. Some of these tech companies have levels, for example, and I think it was called Levels FYI, allows you to filter for that. Use those platforms, find out what is the market rate that you should be paid. That is step number one. Step number two is a tricky one and can be done if you do it carefully. Some people have faced backlash when doing this, and that is benchmark internally. Benchmark with your team, benchmark with your company. I don't think this should be a controversial thing because I think everybody should be paid equally and fairly, but of course companies don't enjoy when the word gets out about how much disparity people may have in what they're taking home in terms of the money. So try to benchmark it with your colleagues. Try to understand what are they being paid for, because they are one of the best comparisons. They are one of the best benchmarks for you and how much you should be making. Be careful about it. Obviously, don't get fired because there have been cases of people creating spreadsheets and forwarding them among the company, which I think everybody should do, right? But certain companies don't have the same opinion on the subject, and we just don't want to we want to make sure that you're being careful not to lose your job over it. Pick your battles, and if it is harder to pass that information around, that definitely says something about the company where you work. And that's just something to note for the future when you are thinking about what is the next step and like what is the kind of environment that you do want to work in. So benchmark internally, obviously being careful, being um, mindful of what the company is like. And hey, if you are about to stir the fire, why not? All power to you, but just letting you know that some companies will not necessarily enjoy the public sharing of the salary data. The next one is external benchmarking. Benchmark with your friends and people in your network who might be at the same type of level as you in terms of skills, education, background, etc. Right? You want to make sure that you can go outside of your company. Maybe there are different data points that you can collect with your friends. In fact, I think that's a very healthy way to benchmark as well, because you get more information about, again, industry standards. You're not just getting information about what is happening internally in your company. And also, I guess there's less stress about potentially being under fire with HR and your company not enjoying you revealing how much everybody's getting paid. I believe that we should be talking about our salaries with our friends so that we can benchmark, so that we know how much we should be paid for the things that we're doing, how much we should be asking for when it comes to asking for a raise, etc. We should be doing this work. We should be doing this kind of communication. So I am working on a database that we can all access that will help us benchmark our salaries and see whether we've negotiated, etc. If this is something that you're interested in, if you want to benchmark externally, join this database. The link will be in the description. It will take you to a Google form that will allow you to share your salary data. And then once you have shared that and answered certain questions, like whether you have negotiated, and if you have, like, what are some of the tips that you have taken away from that conversation? All of those questions, once you fill them out, you will get access to a database where we clean all of the information so that it's anonymized. So everybody submits their information anonymously, but you can filter by education, etc. And the more information we have there, the more information you have to play with, that you have to work with. And it is cross industry, it is cross job functions, it is cross all of that stuff, just so that you can, first of all, see it for yourself. And also, if you're thinking about changing industries or changing job functions, changing directions from, let's say, software engineer to a data scientist or vice versa or whatever, you can see some type of data, and you can even notice the difference between people who have negotiated and who have not. And also, we will share the tips on how to negotiate up. We will obviously make sure that we anonymize everything. So the responses might not look the same way as they came in. But very excited about this project. I hope that this helps a lot of people figure out what they should be asking for, what they should be paid, etc., because we want everybody to be paid equally. And we will also share this kind of information, obviously anonymized and just general information, if a company comes to us and asks how much should we pay, what's like a good rate. So we will take this information into consideration to help companies determine what is a good equal pay rate. So yeah, share your information so that we can grow this database together and help each other reach equality. All right, and so step number 4, once you've done all of the benchmarking, all of the research, is to reflect with yourself on your role, on your current situation, and ask yourself the following questions. The first one being, have I moved companies in the last 5 years? There's an interesting dynamic when you move companies because a lot of the times you get to negotiate your salary and you get to bump it up whenever you do move. And, the more you move, the more comfortable you become with negotiation as a general rule because you have done it more, you have practiced it more. And so the more you move, the higher your salary might be. So if you have not moved companies in the last 5 years, there's a good chance that you might be paid under the market rate of what your colleagues might be paid, colleagues who have moved between different companies. The next question is, did I negotiate when I got this job? A lot of companies have budget for people who negotiate. They start at a lower number and like obviously they're not going to pay you their ceiling. So you got to negotiate. And if you did not negotiate, you probably did leave some money on the table. And if you did not negotiate and you've been promoted, especially if you've stayed with a company for, let's say, 5 years or longer, it is very likely that you are underpaid. Another question to ask yourself and to do some calculations on, and this will differ based on where you live, is my salary keeping up with the inflation? Figure out what the inflation rate has been like and see how your salary has been increasing over the years. If it's not keeping up with the inflation, clearly you are losing money. The next question is, has my role changed from the original job description? If it has, if you're doing different things, it is very likely that you're not being paid the right amount for the role. So try to understand what you should be paid for the role that you are actually performing, not for the job description that you originally got. Finally, reflect on whether you are happy with what you are being paid for the work you are doing, just with yourself. Does it feel right? Does it sit right? Do you feel like you're overworking for what you're being paid? Do you feel like you're valued enough? Do you feel like you have the right conditions in your team? And is it supporting your growth? And is it recognizing your worth to the company? So just reflect on those things. It is very likely that you had a gut feeling of whether you are being or aren't being underpaid when you started listening to this podcast. Listen to that feeling. Why is that? Dig deeper into why do you feel that way? What is it about your job, what you're actually doing at your job, and what you're being paid? Where's the mismatch there? Great work. All of those steps should have told you whether you are being underpaid or not. If you're not being underpaid, congratulations. You have been negotiating, you have been pushing yourself, advocating for yourself, and getting paid, getting recognized for what you're worth. If you're being underpaid, don't take that personally. It's not a reflection of who you are or what you're worth. It just means that you gotta do some work. You gotta do some work and ask for a raise. Or maybe go to a different company and negotiate your pay next time. I will create a separate episode on how to ask for a raise and also a separate episode on how to negotiate your salary when you are reviewing future next opportunities and potentially at different companies. I will do that later. But for now, I have an interview that I want to recommend for you to watch next. It's a YouTube video interview with Sundus, who is an incredible advocate for women getting paid what they deserve. And in this interview, we talked about her strategies and her recommendations on strategies on how to negotiate that raise, how to negotiate that salary bump, etc. So I will leave a link to that interview in the description of this episode. So go ahead and watch it next. But if you don't want to miss the episodes on negotiation strategies and on how to ask for a raise, make sure you are subscribed to this podcast on the podcasting platform of your choice or on YouTube, because we are a video podcast and we're everywhere. Catch us on all of the platforms. And also subscribe to our newsletter. You can find it at stereotypebreakers.com/newsletter. We are currently in a process of revamping our newsletter, and it's getting, oh my God, I'm so excited. It's getting so much more impactful and meaningful. It was before we were celebrating women in STEM, and now we're adding a piece of every single week we're going to do our best to send you a template, a resource, a snippet, or something that you can use, just something actionable. A template on how to say no to your boss, or a template on how to do X, or I don't know. We're currently ideating all of the different templates, so my head is full. But you will see what I mean when you subscribe to that newsletter, stereotypebreakers.com/newsletter. I will see you there. And quick tip, if you respond to those emails, you will be directly in our inboxes, so you can always share your thoughts, feedback, questions, anything else with us using that method. I hope this episode was useful. Share your thoughts, ideas, feedback in the comments. And also, we are watching for your tweets and your LinkedIn post. Tag us on Twitter at Stereotype Brokers or also LinkedIn at Stereotype Breakers, linking this episode with your thoughts, with your biggest learnings. And we will shout out our favorite posts like that here on our podcast. And of course, don't forget to participate in that salary database. The link is in the description. Let's do this. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. I hope you get paid what you're worth. I really want you to. So take all of those steps, take all of those actions, and we'll get to equality. I know we will. Have a wonderful time of the day you're currently experiencing. Bye.